Ann Coulter, how you doing?
Fantastic. How are you, Mark Simone?
Very good. Did you see this new poll? Americans more worried about fake news than terrorism right now.
Excellent.
And this
You're
is
right.
from Axios, which is a very Trump-hating liberal site.
Right.
But Pew Research Center said fake news apparently is terrifying many Americans, that they'll never have legitimate news coverage again.
That's really great. I mean, this does seem to be the one thing we're going to get out of the Trump administration, and not even particularly by Trump doing anything other than being. They've just so completely lost their minds that they've thrown off any pretense of objectivity. In fact, it's related to my column this week, which I'm not giving you a sneak preview of, but it's a really, really good column.
Hey,
really good. I mean, my question is, what are we going to replace news with? I mean, I think it's going to be things like podcasts, and I guess there's still terrestrial radio, which is great, and there's the internet, but the social media companies are throwing anyone they don't like off. I mean, not all of the people they've started with have even been particularly extreme for a while, until Twitter ganged up and started pointing it out and laughing at Twitter. Remember they threw off David Horowitz? Oh, my gosh, he's one of the greatest living writers today. I mean, I really think I would name about 3 people, and David Horowitz would be one of them. If you haven't read his books, please do, along with all of my books. I, of course, would throw myself into that category. Thomas Sowell. Who else? David Horowitz they threw off. Well, we don't have to go through that again, but we are going to need some source where we can get something like truth.
So, but hey, your book, Resistance is Futile, is a good look at all of this. But if Trump hadn't done or said any of the things that he said, they'd still be going after him. What's the underlying psychological reason they hate him more than any Republican ever?
I think there are a few things to it. I mean, part of it is that he's, a tacky narcissist. But come on, we all saw that and got over it. But I mean, as I explained in Resistance is Futile, I think that explains a lot of the conservative intellectuals like Charles Murray. Murray's been railing against these policies that harm the working class for 20 years. His book's like Losing Ground. He's another author you should read everything by, or most things by. And he just detested Donald Trump, and I'd read through his stuff. I mean, he in fact, me making fun of him leads one of my chapters about the snobbery of the right-wing intellectuals. And his complaint was, seriously, this was his complaint, that Trump didn't understand some of the details of Common Core. Now, come on, we know it's the gold fixtures, so knock it off, get over your snobbery. We regular Americans have been able to do it because we like these policies, as Charles Murray. I mean, he has to like the policies given his body of work. And so there's a little of that with the left, and the other part is, what I describe in Adios America. The left was so close to total dominance of this country, they would finally not even have to pretend to care about Walmart shoppers or the entire swath of the nation between the coasts, with, I don't know, a few exceptions for like Austin. The deplorables, as Hillary called them.
Yeah.
What Trump ginned up the deplorables who came back roaring, and, the Democrats are just beside themselves that they have to pretend to care about people in the flyover country, which they may not have to, since Trump is doing nothing about immigration, and the left is about to be right. They will not have to care about anyone outside of Hollywood and Wall Street.
Hey, we were talking about Linda Fairstein before, the great prosecutor. They have brought back...
wait till you see my column.
Well, you wrote a great one once before. They have brought back the Central 5 jogger case, trying to weaponize it against Trump. But it's all myths. Ken Burns and others with their fake documentaries. Well, what's going to happen with all this? I
cover this well. This is why it's not just about this, but I suddenly I detected a pattern. That is my gift, and you will understand everything that's going on. I mean, so many things you and I talk about with Trump. So much of it happened in one day. It suddenly became clear to me what our country is going through, or not one day, but one week, basically. And it fits in with your description of how people don't trust the media, nor should they. But the Central Park rape case, I describe it in some detail in my book, Demonic, which is about mobs. I've repeatedly written about it in columns, but it's apparently just one of those columns. It's going to have to be like my annual Kwanzaa column. I just, run it once a year because they've been lying. Oh, there's another documentary. But this is how the left, in a nutshell, without giving away my column, this is how the left operates. No, we don't want to hear facts. We don't want evidence. We will not have a trial by jury with opposing arguments. Two multicultural, multi-ethnic juries heard the evidence and convicted these 5. Why? Because they were guilty. But the left lies in wait for 13 years and comes back with its, storytelling, and we're going to make a movie about it. And now we have to defer to the folk tales over the facts. A couple of things I will say briefly about that case, though you can read my columns and my column tonight. For one thing, this nonsense about no physical evidence. Well, of course there was no physical evidence. The jogger was beaten to such a bloody pulp. Her case was originally assigned to the homicide unit. No one thought she was going to make it through the night. They thought she was a man when they found her in this puddle of blood. What physical evidence are they going to find? Well, if you're an aficionado of forensic files as I am, you're thinking, what about the DNA? DNA was used for the first time in any criminal court in America about 1 year earlier.
Yeah.
It was a brand new science. Police weren't looking for it. They weren't collecting it. That wasn't how the case was solved. But all 5 of them confessed on videotape in the presence of their parents or another adult relative, except one who didn't need an adult relative there. They knew things that only someone who committed the attack would know. Even the cops didn't know. The cops didn't know some facts for 13 years when Mateus Reyes came forward. And when the prosecutors presented the case to the jury, they always knew there were other rapists who got away.
Yeah.
They told the jury that. Well, okay, that's the guy who came forward 13 years later. There was amazingly a speck of DNA in the semen of the jogger that was inside the jogger, and that connected him to the rape. Okay, this is the one who got away.
Yeah.
That doesn't disprove anything said at trial, but this is the sort of nonsense we have to put up with.
And some of these kids, if they hadn't actually had sex with her, they were guilty of all kinds of things, whether it was holding her down.
Well, you're guilty of rape, right? One of them, one other thing. A lot of them admitted to their friends and relatives that they did it, and the friends and relatives testified in court, including one woman who said, I think it was Corey Wise called her, he was friends with her brother, and said something like, and the direct quote is, I didn't do anything. I just held her legs down while Raymond effed her.
Yeah. Now, poor Linda...
She testified. She thought that was helping him.
Yeah. Poor Linda Fairstein becomes collateral damage in this. They're using this now to go after Trump, whose ad, by the way, said nothing about these actual guys. It was just
That's correct.
A general...
They lie about everything. Everything has to be it's unbelievable. I was at a party the other night with New York literary set.
Oh, good.
New York Times reporters, that sort. And what I found interesting, I obviously won't name names, but how many of them are actually normal people. And they don't disagree with you or me or probably a lot of our listeners. They're a little freaked out by what's happening with the culture.
Yeah, it is crazy. So your new column comes out tonight, and it might touch on some of this stuff?
Yes, it'll wrap it all up in a nice little bow for you.
Oh, good. So go to AnnCoulter.com, and you can get the column and get the book, Resistance is Futile. Get all of her books. Well, you probably have read them, but if you haven't gotten Resistance is Futile, get that, and follow Ann Coulter on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, all of that. Ann Coulter, thanks for being with us.
Good to talk to you, Mark Simone. Bye-bye.
All right, take